And when you're an individual, you're going to want individual recognition. You want the certificate. You want the accomplishment. You want the degree. And you want the praise. You want the promotion.
And when something affects you personally, now you got to make a video about it. Now it has to be addressed because personally you were affected.
Right.
When it's a communal, it's like, are my brothers and my sisters, were they affected?
Yes.
Are my people on the continent, are they affected by this problem that I'm incurring? If the answer is no, why are we discussing it? Before Hodier, African people, we are back today with a very important topic and video for you. We know we've been MIA for a while, but we don't make videos for fun. We always do it if we feel led to do it. So we're back today with a very important topic. We are currently here in Arusha, just visiting, and we are also very excited that we finally hit our 1 year mark on the continent. So something that we're very proud of, very excited about, and yeah, we just want to discuss a few things and a few very important things that we feel that we discuss amongst each other a lot. And we were finally led to just make a video addressing some of our thoughts on African people from the diaspora coming into the continent. Right.
So as my wife said, a BB for Hodier, we're back. And so the title of this video will be The Beautiful Reality of Africa, Advice on Returning. Now, before we dive into the topic, we want to make a disclaimer. Because disclaimers are important. That way you know exactly what you're getting into. So the disclaimer says, in this video, we will not be discussing cost of living, snack availability, how to set up your business, or any other minutia. We will be addressing matters of cosmic relevance that are necessary for our collective growth as a people. So everything we say in this video, don't take it as an individual commentary. These are commentaries that are explicitly made in order to awaken within us our communal self, our communal spirit, the spirit that says, together we prosper and divided we fall. This is the type of agenda that we have. We have a cosmic agenda,
a communal
agenda. And in order to fulfill this communal agenda, we have to break out of these individualist captivity ways of thinking that have been instilled in us through our hostage in America.
Our spell that we have been under in America.
Right.
We'll talk about that later. So let's just get into it, because it is a few topics that we want to address. And we want to make sure we're kind of thorough with addressing them when we hit on those topics. So we don't want to talk too much. Right.
So let's get into it. So the first point that we want to make is America is not just un-African, but it's anti-African. If your complaints do not align with the complaints of African people, that mean continental Africans, they are illegitimate. And if resolving that complaint doesn't benefit Africans, it's also illegitimate. You won't be successful on the African continent unless you identify yourself as an African. First, we should only identify ourselves as Americans with a deep and profound sense of shame.
And regret.
So that means if you're a diasporan and you're coming to the continent and somebody asks you where you're from, you shouldn't be excitingly saying you're American. You should say, unfortunately, I'm from a prison called America. That's what we do. We say we're from prison, we're from hell, we're from captivity. And that's important because living in America, they're indoctrinating you to American rhythms of living. And it's important as African people, we've been so despiritualized that we've forgotten the value of rhythm in determining the course of our lives. And a lot of diasporans, when they leave America and come to Africa, they're still living according to an American rhythm of life. That kind of fast-paced, dog-eat-dog, exploitative rhythm of life that denies all spiritual content. So when we set foot on the continent, we should understand that we should be ready to adapt to the African rhythm of life. And that's a rhythm of life that values familyhood and relationships with nature. So go ahead, what's your point?
And also, that's something that should be happening before you get to the continent. You should be divesting yourself of American ways, American rhythms, American people.
Yes,
family and friends though as well. You have to divest from America before coming here. Because if you don't, you're going to bring America to the continent.
Yes.
And that's never going to be beneficial to yourself or the people.
Exactly. And one of the worst things you can do as a person returning to the continent is, when you set foot here, try to find relationships with other diasporans.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean that you should shun everyone, but you should not be in chats. You should not be in groups of diasporans. You should not be congregating only where diasporans congregate. Because what you're doing there is you're confining your rhythmic frequency to the diasporan or the American frequency. You have to develop relationships with people who are local, who don't speak your language, so that you will be challenged to evolve and grow as an individual.
And that's really what this boils down to. Repatriation is about, I don't even like to say repatriation, but it's about challenging yourself and challenging and growing in a new environment. And it's not easy, but when you come from America, everything that you're exposed to is very easy and given to you. It's an infantile society. So everything is kind of just made for you. That's not how it is here. So it's going to be challenging, but your best bet is to immerse yourself with the people, not diasporans, the people. You can have, of course, you're going to have diasporan people who you are friends with and who you hang out with. That's fine. But the only people, if you're the only people you're communicating with are also from America, then you have to ask yourself, have you really divested?
Right.
Have you really, can you form relationships with African people here on the continent? And if you can't, if it's a struggle for you to form relationships with people who aren't from America, then you have to ask yourself if you really belong here.
Exactly. And this brings us to our second point, which is that diasporans, or we can just say black people in America, we do not, or we, I want to say we, black people from America do not know how to experience communal power. This is why they hate Africa, because they crave praise and they're trapped in what I call the second level of esteem development. So let me describe what I mean by that second level. So every human being has levels of esteem that are determined by what age they are. When you're an infant, your esteem development is based on the receiving of hugs, kisses, and smile. It's very touchy, and it's based on feel and expression. It's non-verbal.
Right.
So that's the first stage. That's the infancy. The second stage of esteem development is based on recognition, and that's the stage that black people are trapped in.
Yes.
Unless we have someone recognizing, wanting to be seen, wanting to be visible, unless we're getting that overt recognition that we've accomplished something, we feel it didn't happen. And if you come to the continent seeking recognition and you don't receive it, you feel rejected, and then you want to return back to a place that you get all the recognition but none of the power.
And this is why you get a bunch of the, not everybody, but this is why you get a bunch of vlogging and a bunch of like documenting every single thing that happens on the continent. And it's like, you want the recognition. Now this is subconscious. You may not consciously be thinking, I want to be recognized. We're talking about subconsciously in America, when you have that mentality and you are living in that rhythm, and then you bring that here, you're just a person who is seeking attention and seeking recognition at every corner at any expense. So what we're saying is that's extremely unhealthy, and that's why we said divesting from America prior to landing on the continent is extremely important, because you're just going to bring that neediness, that need for attention, that need for recognition on the continent, and that's not something African people have.
Right.
They don't have a need to be seen at every time. You can tell by the way they dress, by the way they talk, their language. You can tell it's just ingrained in them. They don't need that. They're not in that deficit of needing attention at all times. But people from people that have come from captivity, that's something that you need psychologically. So that's why we talked about earlier, divesting is extremely important.
And this psychological craving for recognition, that's the offspring of a consumerist culture, because consumerist culture is designed to create deficits. We underestimate the strength and power of consumerist culture because we reduce it to economics. But on the psychological level, consumerism is about creating deficits in African people. And when you create a deficit in African people, what they do is they crave recognition. And now we have to go to what's the third stage of esteem development. And I would argue that the third stage of esteem development is uniquely African because the third stage prioritizes relationships as the essential ingredient to healthy esteem. What do I mean? The third stage of esteem development says your value as an individual is based on your ability to contribute to the growth of others. And how can you contribute to the growth of others? Through families, through communal settings, through mother-father, marital relationships, elder youth relationships, relationships within the clan, within the village. All of these communal based relationships, they satisfy that third level of esteem development. And by the way, that level of esteem development is logically impossible to achieve within America.
It is.
Because in America, families are destroyed through an economic system that prioritizes individuality. And when you're an individual, you're going to want individual recognition. You want the certificate. You want the accomplishment. You want the degree. And you want the praise. You want the promotion.
And when something affects you personally, now you got to make a video about it. Now it has to be addressed because personally you were affected. When it's a communal, it's like, are my brothers and my sisters, were they affected?
Yes.
Are my people on the continent, are they affected by this problem that I'm incurring? If the answer is no, why are we discussing it?
And you can even see the priority on the third level of esteem development in Africa through the ceremony structure. So whenever they ceremonialize something, they're ceremonializing those things that inaugurate a relationship. So when a baby is born, they have a naming ceremony. When people are married, they have ceremonies.
When
people die, they have a ceremony because they're joining the ancestral realm.
And 40 days after the death, they have another ceremony.
So in African esteem development, they always honor relationships. In America, esteem development, they honor recognition. They honor how many eyes are on you.
That's why America has all the celebrities.
And this is why black people from America cannot adapt to the rhythm of Africa because they're trapped in that second stage of esteem development. Unless somebody's clapping for them, they don't have nothing to do for it. And I'm kind of skipping the points, but my wife mentioned it, and I want to talk about this point. And that's, if you only manifest anger over individual misfortune, you don't have the capacity to live in a communal society. You should reserve your anger for those things that happen to African people collectively.
As a whole.
Meaning, if you get ripped off at the marketplace, unless that is a problem that is afflicting the whole of the people in that society, you should not be making commentaries on how this is a deal breaker, because you're talking about an individual misfortune. If you get your phone taken from you, you should not make a video about how this is a deal breaker because you're talking about an individual misfortune.
Not only that, if you spent all your life in America and you don't make videos about the problems and the issues and the robberies and the car accidents and the violence happening in America every day, how you doing that in Africa? Like it doesn't even make sense. You have an innate bias. Before even landing on the continent, you have an innate bias against the continent. So you're waiting and you're eager and your energy is going to attract that bias towards you. So we've experienced things here that we could easily been like, oh, this is a deal breaker.
But it was something that happened to us individually. It didn't happen to everyone in Tanzania. No. So because everyone in Tanzania isn't suffering from this, it would be insensitive to the welfare of Tanzanians for us to complain about things that are only affecting us as individuals. This is a part of being selfless. This is a part of understanding that your responsibilities come before your rights.
Wait. Let's say that.
Your responsibilities come before your rights. Meaning, before we talk about our right to something, we are asking ourselves, what is our responsibility to our people? First. And if our responsibilities to our people isn't being fulfilled, then we have no right to talk about our rights. You only have the ability to complain about your rights being violated when you're fulfilling your responsibility to your people. But we've been indoctrinated into thinking that we have no responsibility to our people, that we can live our truth, that there's no such thing as cosmological truth. You know, that we're not a system within a system, as the Bantu understood it.
Right.
You know, so that's what we have to understand. As a system, as a microcosm of the universe, we have a responsibility to obey and to act in accordance with the demands of the universe.
Yes.
You know, that's what
and the society that we have chosen to come to.
Yes.
Like
we've chosen
you chose this.
Yes. So when you choose something, you should also take responsibility that comes with that choice. That's just elementary.
But it is, but it's also it's difficult for people who come from America who don't practice that divesting of America prior to coming. That these concepts are going to they're not going to sit well with you. They're not, because you didn't do the work prior to coming here. And we're not saying this work is easy, but we're saying it's necessary.
And it's worthy.
It's worthy.
It's worthy.
And it's so rewarding. It's so rewarding. There's nothing more rewarding than being here on the continent.
Yes.
Let me tell you.
Yes.
There's nothing more rewarding. Nothing
more rewarding.
The only other thing would be giving life.
Yes.
On the continent.
Nothing more rewarding than being in the presence of your creators.
Nope.
Your creators aren't in America.
Yeah.
Your creators are in Africa. So what's more rewarding than being in the presence of your creator? And here we get into a point that I like to call Black people in America are afflicted with what I like to call the pale preference. They have a preference for those things that are pale and a repulsion for those things that are dark. We have a pale preference.
A pale preference. We have
because we have a pale preference, when you introduce African people to something dark, even though it's qualitatively superior to that thing that is pale, because you're so lost in the pale preference, you choose that which is pale.
You running back to the pale.
You choose the dysfunction. You choose the illness. You choose the drug addiction. You choose the consumerism.
Once I smell
because it's pale. That's why you choose.
Once I smelled the air here and I saw I felt the energy of the people, how could I go back?
You should smell the air in Arusha. It smells like earth. You smell earth.
Like what?
What does the earth smell like?
I ain't never smelled that in Atlanta.
That's a form of alienation that happens with us Africans. We don't know what the earth smells like because we live in
disconnected.
We live in concrete jungles. You see, concrete jungles. You cannot smell the earth in a concrete jungle.
Nope.
But part of your spiritual revitalization is introducing your senses to the earth. Meaning you should know what the earth smells like. That should be a daily part of your life. So let's get to another part because I was about to get off.
Yeah. We want to get through all these points.
Black people have an innate bias against Africa.
Yeah,
this compensates for their unresolved psychological issues, and the economic system has decimated our communities. And we must develop a non-material concept of contribution. Now, what does that mean? So I said in America, it's logically impossible to fulfill that third stage of esteem development because it's based on contributing. And in America, they say you can only contribute through your material accumulation.
Right.
Meaning you have to be a provider. You have to have the car. You have to have the house. You have to have the clothes. You have to have the bank account.
Meanwhile, these things aren't really yours.
These aren't yours. These are all borrowed items.
These are given to you.
So if you restrict your concept of contribution to material things, that third level of esteem development is unobtainable. Unobtainable.
Yeah.
So, but if you alter and you reform and you Africanize your concept of contribution to say, my concept of contribution is manifest in my ability to protect my wife. My concept of contribution is manifest in my ability to teach my child. My concept of contribution is manifest in my ability to fulfill my responsibilities to my community and to speak truth fearlessly. This is how you contribute in actual ways.
Yes.
But these are ways that are kind of dismissed as superstitious within the demonic, despiritualized domain that is America. Right. So we have to develop what's called a non-material concept of contribution. In other words, we have to Africanize our reality.
What spiritually are you bringing? Why should the Tanzanian people look at you crazy because you're speaking English?
Right.
What is it? You know what I'm saying? Like, what are you...
You should be embarrassed to speak English because what we do when we're in the presence of Kiswahili speakers, we try to be as quiet as possible. And we do this because we hate the fact that our killers and our oppressors have infected us with a demonic language called English.
And we say it to them.
And we say it. You have to apologize. You have to apologize for the fact that you're the descendant of a genocidal process called slavery and colonialism. You shouldn't.
But that's self-reflection.
Yes, that's self-reflection.
But see, when you're in that demonic rhythm of America, ain't no self-reflection. Right. You reflect for 1 second and now you just like, you overwhelmed, you depressed. So it's very hard to do that. But here you can self-reflect much easier. Your mind is much clearer. You're thinking in your African mind. So it's extremely important to understand that you should be listening. Yes. You should be listening.
Every day you should be working. Every day you should be working harder to kill your American self. Every day. And that's not self-hate, because self-hate means it has to be a real self. We're saying the self that America has given you is a fraudulent synthetic self. It's not a real self. That self you have to kill every day. So you should be studying African language. You should be studying African cosmology. You should be studying African people, meaning every experience, every interaction you have with an African, pleasant or unpleasant, should be a learning experience.
Right.
Meaning you should be walking away from that experience saying, I feel more fulfilled as a human being because I just had an interaction with one of my creators.
And Tanzanians, Africans, will express that to you. They tell us. They don't even think that we are, they think we're from the continent already. They don't.
We've had elders, like we was in Morangu, there's an elder, and she said, you are my son and you are my daughter. She never met us before. And she said, you are my son and you are my daughter. And she was able to say that because she sensed in us a level of humility that she knew when she said that we was going to receive it. You have to come to Africa with the spirit of receiving. Not a spirit of, I'm gonna give.
I got something to teach y'all.
I'm gonna teach Africans.
They gonna benefit from my my learning in these European colleges, and we got so much that we can. No, you ain't got nothing to offer. I promise.
To offer.
When you study African people and you study their spirituality and you study their customs and the way, you ain't got nothing to learn. You only have something to learn. You ain't got nothing to teach. I promise. Now, if they come to you and ask you, tell me about the experience in America. Explain to me why it is that you hate white people so much. Like, explain. Now, okay, we can have a dialogue. But I'm not coming to you asking you, why you doing this? Why you doing that? Let me tell you about what it is. No.
In fact, that teaching attitude is reflective of, I think, this idea. I think a lot of people who go to the continent, they think they was invited. No one invited us here. We chose to come here. And when you enter someone else's domain, you should be ready to receive their rules and regulations.
How you in their house?
Nobody invited them. Nobody invited them.
Making videos about them in their house.
In their house. First leave their house. Then you can make some videos.
Even after you leave, it's still disrespectful. So it's like, So, it's not necessary.
So this is a major point, and I want people to listen closely to this because I think this is an idea that I haven't heard articulated, but I think it's true. So this is the idea that healing is a cultural category. So what do I mean? I say it's the myth of people in America, black people, because I'm only talking about us. The myth of black people in America is that they can heal without community organizations. They celebrate a fictional healing journey by coming to Africa. And then they return back to America because Africa has challenged them to grow in ways that they don't want to challenge themselves. Now, what do I mean by healing is a cultural category? So if you believe in the power of culture, that means everything we do throughout our lives is informed by a cultural background. So why would we omit healing from that equation? Meaning in the European society, they say when a person is imbalanced, when a person is dysfunctional, what do? You send them to the therapist. Then there's a confidentiality agreement, and you sit in the therapist's office and you pour out your heart and soul, and the therapist reads some Freud to you, and then you go back home and you figure out how you can deconstruct all these internal issues that you have.
Very individualistic approach.
Very individualistic approach. And the magic of the individualistic approach is it doesn't address the social conditions that produce the imbalance.
The magic is it never works.
The magic is it never works.
You're going to always need a therapist if you're staying in America, okay? Just add that into your expenses.
Yes. It's calculated. Put in your budget. So the African model of healing is that when a person is dysfunctional or imbalanced, this is reflective of an error within the community. Yes. So what you have is the elders commune with that person who is afflicted, and they try to figure out what is it about our society that we need to correct so that this imbalance isn't produced again. So in the process of healing the individual, you heal the community, which is the source of the individual. You see, so you heal both. You have a complementarity between the individual and the community. Right. America is fragmented. You have no complementarity. There's competition. There's alienation. And so when you live in America, where you have no community, where black people own less than 5% of the wealth, and it's going down, there's no possibility that you can call yourself going on a healing journey. First, you have to create a community that can do the healing. It actually sounds funny when you think of it, because you say it when you're in America, healing, and it's like, no, there is no healing journey without a community. Your to do the arm healing. Is decapitated. How you gonna heal? Now and then your leg get decapitated. Like, you talking about healing? You need to be like, you need a whole new reset. And this brings us to proverb, an African proverb, because proverbs are important because they condense in concise form the kind of wisdom of the ancestors. Because notice proverbs, they don't credit it to an individual. They come from nations and people. So that's another aspect of communalism. Knowledge doesn't belong to the individual. Nope. All the things I'm saying is not me saying it. This is my people saying it. I'm just the vehicle for that message. Okay? So that's what we have to understand. Knowledge is communal. And the African proverb says, the weak man goes to where he is smiled at. The weak man goes to where he is smiled at. And you see this, and that basically means a person without any internal strength. Whenever someone doesn't smile at them, and remember what I said about esteem development. That's the first stage of esteem development. And that's why my wife says America's an infantile society. Meaning if black people don't have Africans smiling at them, now they want to go back home. They don't like us. They don't want us here. I've heard black people say they don't want to go to the continent because Africans on the continent don't see us as their brothers and sisters. And my response was, black people in America don't see each other as brothers and sisters. That, and even if that was true, because it's not true. It's not true. But even if it was, so what? Yeah. So this. And you gonna stay in prison? Yes. This is about principle. It don't even make sense. Yes. But when, like I said, when you come from an infantile society, things don't have to make sense. Somebody has to smile at you. Where's the smiles? Where's the hugs? Where's the parade when I got off the airplane? Were you welcoming me back? If I don't have that, now I got an attitude. Now I don't know if I can adapt into this place. So what is our next point? Friendliness shouldn't be a criteria for relationships with African people, but honesty. And this is so important. An infantile mentality craves smiles, and humility is key. So would you rather somebody not smile at you but be honest, or somebody deceive you while smiling at you? You know who always be smiling? White people. Yorugus. They smile at you. We like to say Yorugus are the nicest people. They the nicest people. They so nice. But at the same time, they're also the evilest people on earth. How is that? They're able to complete their evil deeds because while they're doing it, they're smiling at you. So we should have learned. They're giving you compliments. They welcoming you into their spaces. They hiring you. They being your white friend. This is, come on. Politely so we have to get away from the need to be liked. Yes. The need to be praised. Yes. If a Tanzanian or African ain't never smile or speak to me again. Yes. What I'm gonna do? Yes, I might not be happy. Yes. But am I gonna leave? No. Am I gonna make a video? No. Absolutely not. Because we have a responsibility to African people. Another point that's very critical that we forgot to mention is this myth that African people on the continent are somehow overly infatuated or in love with European, with white people. Yeah. Now, this is an argument that diasporans sometimes make, and it's very, very misleading, and actually it's dangerous because it comes from a lack of understanding. So you have to understand, when you're a diasporan and you're coming from a country where you're the minority and you have to interact with white people every day, you're going to develop a hostility. You should. You should. I know, you should, under natural conditions. Yes. You should develop a hostility to Mzungus that the continental African is not going to have, because their interaction with Mzungus is much less, because they're a majority and not a minority in their country. Exactly. So when you ask the African what their opinion is of white people,
or you see them interact with white people and they're not hostile, or they're very kind, or whatever.
Right. Don't criticize that African for not having your hostility. There is a thing you can do, but it requires you to have a certain level of understanding. And
it requires relationships with the people here.
Right. So instead of so for example, if you see an African and their relations to Mzungus or whites is one of either indifference or praise, instead of criticizing them and breaking ties with that African, what you should do is you should treat that white person like trash. Okay? Treat every white person, and this is just another rule for diasporans.
Yeah.
Do not talk to any white people when you come to the continent.
For what?
Don't talk to them. Don't look at them. If they acknowledge you, act like they're a ghost. Okay? Act like they're non-existent. Don't talk to them at all unless you have to. Secondly,
you shouldn't have to.
Secondly, in a situation where you're forced to interact with the Mzungu, treat them like trash. Okay,
and make sure there's Africans around
to witness you treating them like trash. And after you treat that Mzungu like trash, work on developing a bond with those Africans who are either indifferent or praising the Europeans. Because what will happen is that African you're forming a relationship with will develop a tie of solidarity with you. So that when you get in a future conflict with a white person, they will choose your side against them.
Or in the future, when you may not be around, they're observing Mzungus, white people, differently than they did before. Because now they're seeing people who grew up around them and who know more about them than they do. They saw them treat them with discontent, with disgust, with, I don't even want to be in your presence. I don't want to eat at the same table with you. I don't want to be in the same restaurant as you. When they see that, and a lot of times, depending on your personality and how you're presenting yourself to your brothers and sisters, they'll ask you, why did you do? Why did you talk like that about me? And you can go further in and explain it, but you have to be an example. And a lot of people are coming here with love still from Zungus, for pale people, for our enemies, and that's not something that you should be bringing with you. So, but don't condemn our brothers and sisters, our African brothers and sisters on the continent for not having that hostility, because when Mzungus, Yoruba people come here, they don't act the way they act in America. They act completely different.
Right.
So
and a lot of them are Europeans.
A lot of them are from the U.S. So they're much more deceitful with how they relate to African people. Very kind, very welcoming. They get braids, they get locks. They have black children with them, holding them. So it's a different type. But like I said, you have to make it a point to build that relationship with your brothers and sisters to be able to get to that level.
In this modeling process, remember, it's about relationships. Taking a precedent over your feelings.
That's right.
Relationships, because as I said, you have to model this behavior, because once you develop a sincere and authentic bond with the African, and then they see you expressing hostility to a Mzungu, they aren't going to say you're a crazy person.
No,
they're going to say, I know this person. I've seen their family. I've seen that they're decent. That they're decent people who are hospitable and who are humble and have humility. Therefore, whatever reason they're going against this Mzungu, it must be legitimate. That's how you transform minds, sincerely, not just to have some type of power, trip, but in order to accelerate the process of African liberation.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So model instead of complain.
Yes. Model.
Model instead of complain.
Yes. Ask yourself, are you doing the best to model the type of behavior that is conducive to the liberation of your people? Not your personal happiness, but the liberation of your people.
Yep.
We must have an emotional as well as a rational disgust for America. And we must act on principle. Leave your preferences in America. Bring your principles to Africa.
The problem is, America doesn't allow you to have principles. You ain't got no principles. You ain't got no morals. Everything is up in the air. There's nothing that you stand firmly on. Everything you just it's no foundation. So when we say preference versus principle. You like, well, I don't have no principles. Right. That's the problem. Right there. You have to have something that you're like, nah, this is it, and that's ours was we not leaving. That's not an option.
And this, and we want to key in because it's infantilism, this infantile behavior that has been instilled in Black people in America.
Yeah.
It's a feature of all totalitarian societies. So when you live in a totalitarian society, they kind of strip all of your sovereign indigenous systems of self-reliance from you, and then they make you completely dependent on the oppressor for your survival. And by making you dependent on the oppressor for survival, what happens is complaining becomes your chief mode of expression. So you express your sovereignty through complaints. So, and we argue that Africans within America have been conditioned to complain, but that condition to complain doesn't translate well in African environments, because in African environments, they've maintained an indigenous sense of self-reliance that complaining doesn't make sense to them.
It doesn't.
Because when you live in an environment where you can build, you can create, you have crafts, you have value in the family, you work with your hands.
You speak in your language.
You never complain about things because you know you can solve it yourself. You see? And when Black people come here, they're expecting that same catering to their preferences that they receive in America.
And Africans is like, we adults. Like, I'm not. They're looking at you like you're a grown person. Yeah. I hope you grown, but really internally you're a child.
So let's go back to, and I have a book in front of me, and it's written by Yorugu, but I think when we're studying ourselves as Africans, we also have to study our enemies.
Yeah.
And when we study our enemies in the societies they live in, we get a better picture of how African societies are different from those societies. So this book I have is called The Rape of the Mind, and it is written by a psychiatrist by the name of Juste Merlu. Okay? And this book, he talks about totalitarian societies. Mainly he's talking about Nazi Germany, but I think a lot of the observations that he makes also apply to America. So he has this concept called the womb state, and I'm just going to read this passage because I think it's emblematic of the type of psychology that African people within America have been subjected to. So again, this is called the womb state, this section, and he says, totalitarianism is man's escape from the fearful realities of life into the virtual womb of the leader. The individual's actions are directed from this womb, from the inner sanctum. The mystic center is in control of everything. Man need no longer assume responsibility for his own life. Remember, infancy. The order and logic of the prenatal world reign. There is peace and silence, but the peace of utter submission. The members of the womb state do not really communicate. Between them, there is silence. The silence of possible betrayal. That's self-betrayal. Then he says, not in the mature silence of reticence or reservedness. Totalitaria, and that's the fictional totalitarian society, totalitarian increases the gap between the things one shows and communicates and the things one secretly dreams and thinks deep within oneself. It develops the artificial split-mindedness of political silence. Whatever little remains of the individual feeling and opinion is kept carefully enclosed. And this is something that a lot of African scholars have talked about, like Du Bois. He said Black people have what he called a dual consciousness. So they partly American, partly African, and they two warring souls. They're going against each other.
Yeah.
And what's happening right now is the American side is winning that war. In fact, they've declared victory a long time ago.
Yeah.
And you can tell they've declared victory because you don't see African people fighting to get out of captivity. What you see them doing is fighting to accommodate, and the ones who do make it out of captivity, returning to captivity. So what you have is that split-mindedness at a high level going on. And as African people who come from a heritage of holistic health, we should be learning how to integrate ourselves into an African reality.
Right.
Meaning we should have a reality that is based on relationships and not materials.
Right.
Relationships, not materials. And this is something we try to teach our son. We try to teach him that what's valuable in life are the relationships you cultivate with others. And you can't say that you're genuinely interested in calling yourself an African where you have the opportunity to reform relationships with people who are heirs of your ancestors, and you saying, I'd rather live in an environment where I'm in the presence of the enemies of my ancestors.
You can't do it.
You can't do it, because we have to begin challenging and pushing ourselves to ask, are we serious about our commitment to African people? And if you're not, don't say it. Because what's happening right now...
And don't come here.
Don't come here. Because right now what we're getting is a lot of mixed messages.
Yeah.
We have people who saying they love Africa. But then when they come to Africa, they say they have all these complaints. Again, complaints that are very individualistic.
Yes.
That have no cosmic relevance.
Right.
Nothing they say has any cosmic relevance. And what we're saying is, if you take that cosmic dimension out of what you're saying, what you're doing is you're rejecting yourself. You're rejecting your true self. And you're taking on a fake self. Okay? There's a great deal of satisfaction in living by principle, in an abundance in living by principle. And preference only caters to people's desire for satisfaction, but not power.
But not power, yeah.
So when you say, oh, I prefer something, but you don't have a principle that's backing up that preference, then your power is going to be diminished. Because power comes out of a principle, meaning it comes out of a commitment to something.
What are you committed to?
What are you committed to? Not what you like.
Right.
You see, because we're not interested in what you like, what pleases you.
Right.
We're asking, what gives your life meaning? You know, what are you willing to kill and die for? That's what a principle is.
Yes.
So that's what I mean when I say we have to bring our principles to the continent, not just our preferences.
Leave the preferences
in America. Leave those in America.
Or wherever you come from.
Wherever, Europe. Even if it's Europe, leave it in Europe.
Leave it there.
I think we went through it pretty quickly. Let's see. This is we have the African.
We talked about how you don't. I don't want to mention that.
We have corrupt conceptions of power and success, and these compel diasporans to seek the type of power in Africa that their society does not honor. So, and that's just connected to the power in Africa. So, Dr. John Hewitt Clark, he pointed out that in Africa, if you have a power, it was connected to your ability to give. So, the most powerful person, or the most wealthy person, was the person who had given so much, who had given so much, he had no more to give. You see, that was the person who went without. The person who gave so much of themselves that they had nothing left. And what we're saying is, in America, it's the exact opposite. The powerful person is the one who takes so much that everybody else has nothing.
Has nothing. Yeah.
So we're coming from a society of takers, and we're trying to assimilate in a society of giving.
And then you wonder why you come here and you can't integrate.
Because you're trying to take from people
and you
who
know
are
what?
givers.
Africans are the most honest people. They can sense it. Whether you say it or not, they can sense your arrogance. They can sense it. And that's why a lot of people are experiencing negative experience with African people, if that's even happening. But the ones who say that it is happening, you have to ask yourself, why is this happening? Do I have an energy about myself that I'm giving off, that I keep attracting these bad African people that are giving me issues?
You can kind of gauge the kind of how legitimate your complaints are in Africa based on what the type of things you used to complain about when you was in America. So, for example, when I was in America, the thing that I think gave me the most distress was my job. And it wasn't necessarily that bad things were happening to me at work. I hated my job because I hated the idea that I was making money for a white person. I hated the idea that for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, I had to be a slave. You see, and that's something, notice, that complaint is something that millions of African people endure. It isn't something that was just happening to me. And it was in the essence of the system. And I'm saying, if you didn't have a fundamental disgust with the essence of the system of America while you were in it, then you're not going to like Africa.
And you were upset too when you would see other people who weren't upset.
Yes, right.
About
the thing
working.
that used to annoy me is when I used to go into work and I saw people smiling and giggling and happy, because all I was thinking about was how to destroy the country. That's the only thing I was thinking about. How do I destroy this corporation, destroy this country, and how do I get out before it collapses on me?
Right.
That's all I was thinking about. So I'm saying, unless you have that kind of icy, as George Jackson said, that icy disdainful hatred for America, you're not going to love Africa, because America has perfected the art of temptation.
Yeah,
they know that it's a spell. We call it a spell.
Yeah, it is.
When you leave America, they'll tell you, yeah, that's cool, you calling yourself an African, but don't you miss the TV? Don't you miss the convenience? Don't you miss the grocery stores? No, I don't miss any of that. And even a lot of Africans, they don't believe us when we say we don't miss it. They're like, so y'all going back now? When y'all going back? Never. Never. And why? Does that mean that...
And it shapes, it redefines their view of America. That's another thing you should be doing. You should be converting Africans to be anti-American. Yes. Every encounter we get with a continental African who talks about America in a positive light, we switch that quickly. Tell them America is evil. I tell children. I've talked to children and they say, hey, I've talked to a boy. He said, where are you from? I said, I live in Dar, because I didn't want to say I was from America. Then he said, you don't sound like you're from Dar. He said, are you African? I said, yeah, I'm an African. And he said, I don't think you're African. I said, well, what am I? I said, don't I look like an African? He said, no, you're African American. And then I took offense by that. I said, African American is a term that was given to Africans who hate themselves. So I was like, and I said, don't go to America, because America kills Africans. America hates Africans. America is demonic and evil. So I'm not an African American. And notice he didn't mention anything about police brutality. Like, it don't even have to be like a deep conversation. It can just be very plain, like America hates Africans.
America's evil.
America hates you.
Yes.
It don't even got to be in...
America hates you. If you go there, they probably going to try to kill you.
Exactly.
Don't go.
For what? The people there are in turmoil. What you see on TV is a lie. Very simple, direct. The person that hears it doesn't have to be like, wow, no, it's very... America hates you.
The president is a beast. He's a jackal.
Right. But see, a lot of African people from America or wherever are coming here, and they're not doing that.
Yes. How are you going to be African and you don't hate America?
How?
When America is anti-African.
And even the Africans who are here who don't hate America, we talk, like I said, we give them that, and a lot of them are starting to realize. They're like, I see it now. I didn't realize.
Teach them also how to analyze whites. I mean, I don't want to say teach, because as I said, we shouldn't be teaching anything.
Right.
But you should be alerting them to their enemies. Like when a white person is in there, when a Mzungu is in their presence, you should be like, hey, that Mzungu, she's here to prey on you. She's here to exploit you. She's here to destroy you.
And we tell them, take me to the place where there's no Mzungus.
Yeah. Don't give us any Mzungu.
Don't give me nothing that's Mzungu, please.
Yeah.
Asante.
And another thing is, if an African calls you Mzungu, deal with it. Because honestly,
you speaking their language.
Yeah.
So...
If I met a person, if I grew up in Africa and I met a person who was speaking a European language, was wearing European clothes. Was
proudly European.
You know.
Not trying to blend in. That's another thing. Blend in.
That means dress like them.
Dress like an African.
Yeah, dress like an African.
Like that's why we said divesting from America is important, because when you are divesting from America prior to coming, you want to change your attire. You don't want to wear the same things and wear the same hairstyles and wear the same beat up face every time. Like, you want to look different. And it's interesting how people are coming here, and we could tell diasporans from a mile away. Like, well, they clearly not from here. Versus with us, people, they come to us and they automatically think we speak Kiswahili, because
and we don't.
We don't.
But it's
not
fluently. It's our humility.
Right.
It's the fact that we put ourselves in situations where we're always bowing. We say shkamo. Like, I say shkamo to people who may be like a year older than me. Like, it don't have to be an elder. I see somebody who...
Shkamo is just what
shkamo. I am beneath you. You see, we don't know how to say that in America. No, it means I am at your knees.
I respect you.
I respect you.
So I'm saying, make yourself available to be integrated. A lot of people are coming here and you want to be accepted, but you're not making yourself available to be accepted. You look unacceptable. You look like somebody who's on a tourist vacation. So you're going to be treated as such. So what we're saying is the divestment, the first point we made earlier, is imperative to be able to stay here. It's imperative.
And I want to return quickly to the point of healing. And I wanted to say, one, I said healing is a cultural value. And the African heals communally, while the European or the Mzungu heals individually. Mm-hmm. So the question becomes, well, within the African context, how do you know you're healed? You know, because there isn't like a report card you get and it says you are now healed. So how do you know you're healed? So I would say within the European or Mzungu universe, healing is expressed through you just feeling better. So you go out and you be like, oh, I feel so happy. Like I feel like I'm smiling all the time. Yeah. That's not healing, because you can find plenty of black people in America just
smiling and skipping,
happy as hell, but just like completely dysfunctional
depressed,
internally,
in turmoil internally. But so they smiling at every no.
And that's called false consciousness. False consciousness.
The people who always smiling, those usually the most depressed.
Yes. And depression is something that sometimes you can have it without knowing.
Without knowing.
Because you hide it from yourself. And that's another aspect of the womb state. That's why I said every communication is permeated by betrayal. It's a self-betrayal. You're hiding yourself. You're hiding your true thoughts about your experience from yourself. From yourself.
That's the ultimate form of
it's oppression.
That's
you're canceling out the possibility of liberation.
Yes, you are oppressing yourself.
You're oppressing yourself. So healing is not just feeling better. So what is healing? Healing is shown in a renewed sense of purpose. That's your healing. That means even if you're in pain, even if you're upset, you always have a home base to go to that says, I'm living my purpose.
First.
I'm fulfilling my cosmological agenda. I'm living in line with my ancestral path. That's what healing truly is.
Yeah.
You know, when you're struggling and at the same time you say, but while I'm struggling, I'm protecting my family to the best of my ability. I'm teaching my son to the best of my ability. I'm safe. You see, that's where true healing comes in. So we have to begin to Africanize, like I said, our concept of healing. Yeah. And that means we can't just read about healing, because I read a lot about healing.
Or watch videos.
You can't watch videos about it.
Or
we
go
can't
on retreats.
Go on retreats. You know, no, you have to immerse yourself in a community and then begin to change your life so that you become more one, more united with that community.
Right.
That's healing.
That's what we're not doing. We're not doing that.
We don't want healing communities. We want communities that will enrich us. You know,
we want communities similar to the communities in America, but we want them on the continent. Yes. So we want to do the same things we did in America: eat the same food, go to drink the same, party the same, dress the same, talk the same. But we want to do it in Africa because we love Africa.
Yes.
Like,
we want to be a transplant.
It doesn't. It's not going to work.
Yeah.
Africa is too ancient for you to bring that infantile behavior over here. It's just it's not going to work.
And are we saying now that Africa is just perfectly balanced to the point that it's beyond correction? No. But what we are saying is those corrections have to be led by Africans. And when your responsibility is to follow their lead. That's your responsibility. And
coming from where I came from, the U.S., it's nothing that Africa could do to make me be like, well, this ain't, what?
No.
You came from hell.
And Africa, if you're embracing your true self, it belongs to you.
It does.
Psychologically,
you belong here. We're here because we belong here, not because we were called to the continent and the ancestors, returned ancestors whispered in our ear when we was in Atlanta and Stone Mountain was like, you need to be in Africa. Nobody, that didn't happen. Like, we belong here.
Yeah. So that means even if Africa was on fire, getting hit by earthquakes and hurricanes, well, I guess we got to go into the earthquake because that's where we belong.
We ain't going nowhere, okay?
So your healing
That's the mentality you have to have.
Just as I said, your healing is found in a renewed sense of purpose, where your purpose is compatible with your sense of belonging. Meaning, if you don't have a sense of belonging, then you don't have a purpose. You see? And that's the power of the communal society. It never allows you to have this feeling of not belonging. That's why the highest punishment in communal society is exile. It wasn't imprisonment. It was exile. To be outside of the community.
Africans don't even have prison.
But in America, what you have is an entire population of people living in exile. That's what it means to live in America. You're in exile. You're in exile.
And then imagine they're going back to exile.
Right. You're going back to exile after getting home. You see? And that's called how Europeans turn the meaning upside down, inside out, and backwards. You have people running into exile away from home because they've been so mind raped. They've been so mind raped that they can't even recognize what home is. They've lived in exile so long that their exile has become their home.
And they more worried about their feelings, individuals, than the community. And that's never going to work here. So not just in Tanzania, anywhere on the continent, it's not going to work.
So the American experience has condemned African people, many African people, to a permanent state of spiritual exile. Okay? So there's a permanent state of spiritual exile. And that when you're in that situation, there is no revolution, there is no liberation. But what we're saying is those people who have still that opening to escape that spiritual exile, you have to take advantage of it. And it begins in your mind. It doesn't begin on the airplane. No. It doesn't begin at the airport. It begins in your mind.
Yes.
And it begins with that complementary love for Africa and hate for America.
Yes. You can't. Loving Africa will not keep you here.
Yes, it will not.
Hating where you came from will.
Yes. Because whoever loves anything without hating something else.
You have to. You can't be like, I love Africa, but I'm indifferent on America. You'll be back. We can tell when we do encounter diasporans, the way they talk about America, you can always tell how if they're going back or not, or how long they'll be here, because it's either very like, you'll be back. Yeah. You have to hate it to stay here because it is easier. There's more amenities there, and you've been conditioned to want those things. The consumerist personality in you can thrive there. Okay, consumerism is a personality.
Yes, it's not just an economic.
It's not just an philosophy. So that's the perfect place for somebody who's a consumer. So I'm saying all those things, all those amenities that America offers, are going to be more beneficial for you if that's your mindset. Yeah. So you need more than just I love Africa.
Right.
You need more.
Right. Because prior to our leaving America, I remember we didn't want to leave the house.
We didn't leave the house.
Yeah, we didn't leave the house because it became just like as we said at the beginning,
repulsive.
the rhythm of America had become so out of line with the rhythm that we were trying to cultivate that we would literally get nauseated for real, nauseated just being in the society,
in the presence of people who were just content with being there. Like it made you sick to see people just shopping and just driving and walk. It was like y'all don't see. You can't. Okay, I don't even have words. So it was. If you don't have that discontent for America prior to leaving, you'll be back. Save your money.
Yeah, it's not intellectual. It's emotional and intellectual.
Yes.
But it begins with the emotion. It begins with that rhythmic kind of imbalance that you feel.
That fundamental principle that this is not where I belong, and Africa is where I belong, where we belong as a people.
Yeah, and if we would say something last, I would just repeat a phrase that I said a while back, which is the revolutionary is the person who loves truth more than praise. And everything we've said in this video, it could be condensed into that statement.
Yeah.
Fitting into the cosmological order of things, believing in communal forms of healing as opposed to individual forms of healing, defeating consumerism and understanding non-material forms of contribution. These are all ways in which you awaken your appetite for truth. And when you have an appetite for truth, Africa will never fail you.
It won't.
It will never fail you.
And these ideas and concepts were able to be more evolved in us once we were here.
Yes.
A lot of this stuff that we're saying, we didn't really understand
before.
It was still forming.
Yeah.
So it's power being on the continent. It's power. And we're not tapping into the power of just being here. We're not. We're too immersed in the image and blogging and making videos about how to do this and consultations and all that stuff. Like it's not that. No, we're not here for that. We're not here for that. And what I'm saying is, if you want to come and stay, you have to reevaluate why you're here.
Yes. We are here because this is where you're supposed to live and die. Heard what I said at the end? You're supposed to die here. You're supposed to die here. You're not supposed to die in exile.
Right. You're supposed to raise families here. You're supposed to cultivate relationships here. You're supposed to build here. You're not supposed to do none of that buying land and building homes and doing all that stuff in America. It's comical. It looks crazy when you're here.
Because even if, and this is the real kind of like fraud of America, even if you call yourself having a happy, fulfilling life in America, if you die there, that's an asterisk. That's like you never made it home. Yeah. You never knew yourself in its fullest form. Yeah. You know. So
you knew your infantile self.
You knew your infantile self, but not your mature self. Not your mature self. So we have to begin standing in our maturity, our spiritual maturity as human beings, as Muntu, because that's what they call it in Bantu Congo, the Muntu. And the Muntu had an entire matrix of people surrounding him or her to justify their humanity. And that's something else we've lost sight of. Within Africa, you're not just human because you're born. You have to justify. You have to prove. You have to demonstrate your humanity.
How do I know?
How do you demonstrate your humanity?
That's why the phrase "we're all human" is blasphemous.
Yes.
No. No, we're not all. You have to prove. Just like I have to prove. Yeah. Demonstrate to me that you're human.
And that's what we're doing right now, because America is subjects African people to a prostrate existence. What does that mean? So now I'm getting into cosmological. This video is going to be really long.
So we're going to end it after this. But go ahead, baby.
So the African is a combination of vertical and horizontal. This is Bantu Congo. Vertically, that means we receive thoughts. We have thoughts. Horizontal means we move in order to act on the thoughts that we have. So that's why they say in Bantu Congo cosmology, the African is a thinking, doing creature.
Balance.
We think and we do. What America has done is eliminated that thought process. So you're basically a remote control person. You're moving, but you're not thinking. So
this is off.
And in their cosmology, they say anyone who moves without thinking, they're a prostrate being, meaning they're face down. They're like an animal. You're animalized.
Animalistic. And that's what white people are.
And that's what America is designed to do. It's to animalize the African.
Appetite driven.
And what we're saying, if you want to demonstrate your humanity, to demonstrate that you're a Muntu and not just a human, that European word, you're a Muntu, you're a true human being, then you have to begin nurturing that vertical dimension of yourself.
Yes.
So that's all I'll say.
Ashe. Thank you for watching. Asante Sane, Dadas and Kakas for watching. We will see you when we are led and when we feel like making another video. Asante Sane, Kwaheri.